Light path!
We are talking Crystal's Shadow. This one is directed by Elias Kaju and stars Sienna Guillory and William B. Davis, who you may know from the X-Files TV show. So this is a kind of UFO, conspiracy, alien abduction, Men in Black, basically a whole load of things that are kind of thrown into this movie. I would personally refer to it as Exposition the Movie. So let's discuss. So what is the story here? So it focuses on this young woman called, well, Crystal. And she is this kind of mysterious woman who has had a troubled past with strange manipulative parents. And she initially is found kind of passed out on the sort of side of the road. She's picked up by this guy. And she seems to be exhibiting some type of basically supernatural powers, for lack of a better word. And she is apparently being pursued by some type of otherworldly force. This could be aliens, it could be some type of supernatural entity, it could be kind of the Men in Black. And she ends up in the company of a kind of radio DJ, late night DJ, who specialises in kind of like paranormal phenomena, along with a couple of other people. We've got like this kind of Native American guy. We've got this kind of this Russian atheist woman who is a UFO expert, a Christian couple. So we have all these kind of different people who have different kind of religious and spiritual beliefs. And then we have this woman, Crystal, who has some legitimate kind of like paranormal shenanigans going on. And as the movie progresses, we learn that this forces may well be at work here, and what happens? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. Suffice to say, this movie has a whole lot going on, maybe a little bit too much. So let's discuss Crystal's Shadow. Well, this movie certainly isn't lacking in ambition. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I mean, this really does try and have elements of pretty much every type of kind of conspiracy, UFO, paranormal, supernatural kind of like myths and legends, all kind of thrown into one almost. So if you're a fan of things like the X-Files, and this movie actually does reference that, ironically you have William B. Davis, who was in the X-Files, in it. So this is definitely maybe something you'd be interested in. What works, like I've said, it's a very ambitious plot. So there's a fair amount kind of going on here. The effects now, the director Elias Kaju actually comes from a special effects background, and although this is fairly low budget, I did say I think for the budget I actually thought the effects were quite fun. There's a reasonable amount here of various kind of like supernatural powers, people disappearing, kind of like shadowy figures, aliens, UFOs. There's a fair amount on kind of display here. I mean, some of them look better than others, some of them look like pure cartoon CGI, but some of them I feel are a little bit more effective, especially maybe kind of the shots of kind of UFOs and, you know, lighting up powers and things like this. There's a good variety of characters here, so that we are deliberately kind of introduced to a cast of very kind of different people, which makes for some interesting discussion. And you know, it's a very well defined characters and kind of who's who, and there's certain points of view. And the movie is very inside baseball, very kind of like, if you are a fan of the X-Files or just kind of conspiracy theory enthusiasts and kind of UFO spotters, it's very much made for that crowd, I feel. So this is made for a very specific audience, and not really for the casual fan, I would say, more for people who have an interest in this type of thing. The movie is relatively well paced, I would say, and shot fairly proficiently with some, you know, some reasonable kind of like camera placement and scenery and stuff like that. What doesn't work for me, on the staying on the technical side, I've got to say I think the editing here was quite choppy. There's some quite hard edits from one scene to another, and it's at times it's kind of quite jarring. Sometimes I feel this movie is a little underlit as well. Obviously a lot of it takes place at night, but sometimes it feels just like it could have done with a little bit of writing to make the scenes a little bit more well lit. The biggest problem I have with this film is that it really is, it seems literally 50% of the dialogue of this movie is exposition. There's so many scenes here that are just people explaining things, be it on the radio or some kind of info dump or even narration. It's just exposition after exposition after exposition, and I feel they've tried to kind of weave in so many type of different hints to different mythologies and stuff like that. It's just bitten off far too much than they can chew, and it's trying to explain all of this stuff, and ultimately it becomes more of an infomercial about certain kind of conspiracy theories and trying to explain certain phenomena that it becomes a little bit tiresome. The acting as well, I've got to say, is a mixed bag. I mean, we've even got seasoned actors like William B. Davis here giving sometimes, well, I've got to be honest with you, there's a little bit of an embarrassing performance here, because they're clearly kind of, it's obviously shot in a very short amount of time, so people aren't given a particularly, it feels like they're kind of a little bit rushed at times, and their performances are a little bit cheesy, if I'm honest. And like I've said, like I've touched on, the effects here are sometimes a little cheap. I've got to say, I think the script is just a little bit over ambitious and becomes a little bit too inside baseball, and I think kind of like it's a little bit just trying to have too many ideas here. I don't think it works particularly well, and maybe should have been had a bit more to it, maybe in regards to it's just streamlining a little bit. So overall, I feel maybe this film has an audience, and I feel that there's quite a lot packed in here for a certain audience that I think maybe will get a lot from it. And like I've said, visually, I think it does have some style. It has interesting characters. I don't feel they're particularly well acted though, and I feel this movie relies far too much on exposition. I'll give this one a I'll give it a 5 out of 10. I do feel there is some stuff here to enjoy, but I've got to say it's a little dense and becomes a little bit tiresome to watch. So for a certain crowd, I think it will be worth a watch, but for the majority of people, I've got to say I think it's just a little bit too dry. Anyway, so 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time.